good. Gimel Vav sounds good.
Okay, wait, that's me, right? Yeah. Okay. If his olives were put on the roof and rain fell on them, and he is happy. If it is included in the law of water is placed. Rabbi Yehuda says it is impossible not to be happy, rather only if he blocks the drain pipe or if he rolled the olives about in the water. Regarding donkey drivers who are passing through a river and their sacks fell into the water, if they were happy, it is included in the law of water is placed. Where Rabbi Yehuda says it is impossible not to be happy, rather only if they turned the sacks over. If one's feet were full of mud and similarly the feet of his animal and he passed through a river, if he was happy, it's included in the law of water is placed. And Rabbi Yehuda says it is impossible not to be happy, rather only if he stood still and rinsed. With regard to a person and a non-kosher animal, it is always tummy. Regarding one who brings wheels and cattle gear down to the water during a heat wave in order that they bond, the water is included in the water or law of water is placed. And regarding one who brings an animal down to the water to drink, the water that comes up in its mouth is included in the law of water is placed. But as for the water is brought up to its legs, it is not included in the law of water is placed. If he intended his legs to be rinsed, even the water brought up on his legs included in the law of water is placed. Included in the law of the water is placed. During the time of foot sores and threshing, the water is always tummy. If a deaf, mute, a deranged person, or a minor brought the animal down to the water, even though he intended that its feet be rinsed, the water is not included in the law of water is placed, for they have legal actions if they do not have legal intent.
Okay. So, yeah. All right. Perek Dalet. A guy comes to the river and he bends over the river to drink directly from the river, or to use his hand to scoop the water into his mouth. Okay. Now what's going to happen, of course, is his face is going to get wet. And the question now is, he didn't get to drink the water, obviously, that's outside his mouth, that's on his moustache, that's on his beard, on his nose, wherever else the water gets. So is that considered intentional? And if it drips now onto some produce, will that be Machshirin? Okay. So the Mishnah answers, Hamayim ha'olim b'fiv u b'sfamo. Anything that drips off his lips or his moustache, b'chiyutan. There, it's inevitable that he's going to get that water onto his lips and on his moustache. If you're drinking, that's just what happens. Okay, and so that's l'ratzon. There's no okay. However, b'chotmo on his nose, or rosho if it's anywhere else on his head, or b'zkano or if it's on his beard, einan b'chiyutan. What's the difference? Because it is possible to drink without getting water on your nose, on your head, on your beard. For example, if you took a glass and drank it like that. But you still can't avoid getting it on your lips or on your moustache. So those are always considered inevitable and bechiyutan. Now what is he doing? He's got a barrel and he's using or some sort of or jug or something, and he's using a string to lower the thing into the water. So any water that comes up after it, out on the outside of the kli, or on the rope that he's drawing it up with. All of that, it's inevitable that he's going to get that water. So he's deliberately lifting up water, and he knows that when it comes up, it's always going to come up with water on the outside. So if he drips water from there onto produce, that's all called b'chiyutan. Kamahu tzorka. How much is the necessary part of the rope? I mean, if for example he's using an excessively long rope and more of it gets wet than was absolutely necessary, then not all of it is going to be b'chiyutan. Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar Omer tefach, just one tefach of the rope, because that's how much you really need to be able to put a kli into the water and lift it out, which is basically a hand's grip. So anything more than that was not initially necessary, and therefore the water that comes up is not considered intentional. Yeah. And if he put the kli under a drain pipe, then obviously the water that fell into the kli is b'chiyutan, but anything that spilled over is not called b'chiyutan, because that's again not inevitable. It happened, but it wasn't an inevitable consequence of leaving the kli under the pipe, and therefore if it does overflow, that water that's on the outside is not b'chiyutan. Okay. Mr. Base, Mishe Yardu Alav Geshamim. So a guy is walking and the rain starts falling on him. Okay. Afilu Av Hatuma, even if the person himself is an Av Hatuma. Okay. The
Yeah.
water, if he wanted the water, it would immediately become Tame on him. But Enan B'chiyutan, if he's just walking and water splashing onto him and then splashing onto produce, not B'chiyutan. However, Imni air B'chiyutan, if he stops and shakes everything off and splashes water from himself, now that's a deliberate movement of water. He is intentionally moving water, and therefore that gives it the quality of B'chiyutan. Ahmad Tach. Now there's actually a little footnote in here where Kahati explains that in the Gemara it says that we're talking here about somebody who did one big shake and the water just splashed off in one shot. Okay, as opposed to if somebody took the water and squeezed it. Now, if it's squeezed and it ran down him, then as soon as he moves it a little bit, the water that touches him, and remember we said he's an avatuma. That water
Right.
immediately is going to become tame, not just b'chiyutan. And as soon as it touches anything else, it immediately makes it tame. Never mind machshir. Okay. Um, Amad tachas hatzinor, if he stood underneath a pipe in order to wash himself down, okay, or lahaker or laduach, either to cool himself off or to rinse himself. But tame, tame, if the person himself is tame, the water that comes off him is tame because that's definitely intentional. If he stood under the shower, or but tahor b'chiyutan, and if the person himself was tahor, then the water remains tahor, but it is now b'chiyutan because it has been moved for his intention. Yeah. Mishnah Gimel, hakofek kara ala kotel. So he takes a bowl and he sticks it against the wall. Now, why did he stick it against the wall? All of this depends on his intention. Um, if it was that he put it there in order to rinse it off, then any water that comes onto it was intentional. So that's how it's your ton. But if he saw that there was that there was a part of the kotel of the wall that was not properly plastered, and he wanted to protect it from the rain. So the dish is there not for its own sake, but to act as a protection for the wall. Then Einan B'chiyutan, and the water that's on it is not something that he wanted. It's something that he actually specifically didn't want to get onto the wall, and therefore, since it's not l'ratzon, that is not B'chiyutan. Okay, let's go back
Okay.
to Aleph Beis.
Please. If one shook a tree in order to dislodge from its food or tummy object that is not included in the law of water is placed, and to dislodge from its liquid, Beit Shammai says what emerges and what remains on the tree are included in the law of water is placed. Basilo says what emerges is included in the law of water is placed, but what remains on the tree is not included in the law of water is placed because he intends that all of it should be dislodged. If one sugar tree and fruit fell onto another tree, and one sugar branch and fruit fell fell onto another branch, and under them were seeds or vegetables that were attached to the ground, Beit Shammai says it is included in the law of water is placed, but Beit Hillel says it is not included in the water if water is placed. Rabbi Shua says in the name of Abba Yosef ben Kali Kufra, a leader of Sivan, you should wonder yourself if there is a liquid that generates susceptibility to the tumor in the Torah, unless he places it with intent, for it is stated, but if water it has been placed on a seed. If one shook a bundle of vegetables and the water fell from the upper part of the bundle to the lower, but Shammai says it is included in the law of water is placed, and Beit Hillel says it is not included in the law of water is placed. Beit Hillel said to Beit Shammai, but if one shook a vegetable stalk, should we not be concerned that the water went from one leaf to another leaf? Beit Shammai said to them, because the stalk is one item, but a bundle comprises many stalks. Beit said to them, if one brought up a sack full of fruits and placed them on the banks of a river, should we be concerned that the water descended from the top of the sack to the bottom? But if he brought up two sacks and placed them on top of the other one on the other, the bottom one is included in the water. Of water is placed, and Rabbi Yossi says the bottom sack is also tahor. If one pressed on a leak or squeezed water from his hair with his garment, Rabbi Yossi says what emerges included in the law of water is placed, but what remains is not included in the law of water is placed because he intends that all of it should emerge. Okay. All right.
Okay. Wait, hold on a second. Did you?
Yeah.
No, we've got to do Vav as well there. Oh wait, no, I'm wrong. I am
Right.
wrong. Pardon. Yeah, we just started with base, so that. So we should have finished with Dalid.
Did I finish with Aleph?
Yeah, we should have. So we should be starting with hay tomorrow. Yeah, I ran over
Uh,
there.
wait a second. Maybe are you trying,
We
wait,
started with
so
we started with Aleph base, and then we should have. I think you just finished hay, right?
we finished. I finished Aleph Vav. Aleph Hey.
Yeah. So okay. So hay that made four Mishnahs. So we'll go. So tomorrow is supposed to be hay. Okay. Never mind.
Let me move this
Um,
back.
Mikvahos Tesvav.
Let me move this Aleph Hey tomorrow. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Uh, Mikvos. Mikvos. I have a Kedushin first. Okay. Mikvos. Okay. This is Tesvav. When found on garments, if only on one side, it does not intervene, but if on both sides, it does intervene. Rabbi Yehuda says in the name of Rabbi Ishmael, even on one side, it does intervene. And Rabbi Yossi says on garments of Torah scholars, it intervenes even on one side, but on those of the bore, it only intervenes when on both sides. On the apron of pitch workers or potters or of tree pruners, it does not intervene. Rabbi Yehuda says the same applies to the apron of fruit dryers. This is a general rule. Anything which one finds disturbing intervenes, and anything which one does not find disturbing does not intervene. All handles of utensils that were inserted improperly, or they were inserted properly but they were not finished, or they were finished but not became broken, these intervene. A vessel who immersed with his mouth downwards is as though it is not immersed. But if immersed the normal way, but without its appendage, it does not become tahor unless it is turned on its side. And a vessel which is now at both ends and wide in its middle cannot become tahor unless it is turned on its side. A bottle whose rim is turned downwards it cannot become tahor unless it is placed on its side. And a layman's inkwell cannot become tahor unless it is placed on its side. The Yosef HaKohen inkwell was pierced on its side. Okay,
Okay, that's it.
that's it.
Yeah.
Okay, Kedushin.
Nagaim first.
Go ahead first. Okay. Okay. Um, a confined house makes a person tummy from within, and a confirmed house makes tummy from within and without, and both make tummy upon entering. If someone builds a tower building using stones from a confined house, and then a nigger returns to the house, he must remove the stones. If nigger returns to the stones, the first house is demolished, and the stones function as an indicator in the second house. When a house extends over a fixed house on a tree, extends over a fixed house. I'm sorry. When a house extends over an afflicted house, or a tree extends over an afflicted house, someone who enters the outer one is tower. These are the words of Elazar ben Azariah, but that Elazar, if one of its stones renders tummy upon entering, the house should itself certainly amend the tummy upon entering. Yeah.
Do one more because we started early. Yeah.
Okay. If someone's stomach is standing under a tree and someone places tower passes underneath the tree, the tower person becomes tame. If someone tower is standing under a tree and someone tame passes underneath, the tower person remains tower. If the tame person stops, the tower person becomes tame. The same is true when an afflicted person is mobile. The tower person remains tower, but if you put the stone down, the tower person becomes tame.
Okay. Okay, Arachin.
I messed something up here. Uh, we have hey bait. If one says, I take upon myself to give the value of my arm, we evaluate him to determine how much he is worth with his arm and how much he is worth without the arm. This is the stringency of vows or worth over Arachim vows. And the stringency of Arachim vows over vows of worth is in what manner? If one said, I take upon myself to give my Eric and he died, the heirs must give it. But if he said, I take upon myself to give my worth and he died, the heirs did not give it. Not give it, for the dead have no worth. If he says, I take upon myself to give the Eric of my arm or the Eric of my leg, he has said nothing. But if he says, I take upon myself the Eric of my head or the Eric of my liver, he must give the Eric of his entire self. This is the rule for anything upon which one's life depends. He gives the Eric of his entire self. And if one says, I take upon myself to give half my Eric, he gives half his Eric. But if he says, I take upon myself to give the Eric of my half myself, he gives his whole error. If one says, I take upon myself to give half my worth, he gives half his worth. But if he says, I take upon myself to give the worth of half of myself, he gives his whole worth. This is the rule. For anything upon which one life depends, he must give the error of his entire self. Okay.
One more.
If one says, I take upon myself to give the error of so and so, even if both the vow and the subject of the vow died, the heirs must give it. If he says, I take upon myself to give the worth of so and so, and the vower died, the heirs must give it. But if the subject of the vow died, the heirs not give it, but the dead have no worth.
Okay. Next up, Gittin. Let's finish Gittin and then we move on to Kiddushin.
I take out the wrong thing. Here it is. Just put it in the wrong place. Okay. If she was reported to the town to be married, she is married. To be divorced, she is divorced, as long as there are no qualifications. What is a qualification? If they said so and so divorced his wife on a condition, where he threw her condition to her, and there was doubt if it was close to her or close to him, this is a qualification. Ben Shammai says a man may not divorce his wife unless he's found in her an act of adultery. But it says because he found in her an adulterous thing. Beis Hillel says even if they burnt his food, if he says because he found in her an adulterous thing. Rabbi Akiva said even if he found another more beautiful than her, as he says, and it comes to pass that she does not find any favor in his eyes. Okay.
Okay.
And Kedushin. A woman is acquired in three ways. She acquires herself in two, and she acquires herself in two ways. She is acquired with money, with a document, or with an alcohol habitation. With money, Rabbi Shammai says, with a dinner or something worth a dinner. Yisrael says, however, say with a pruta or something worth a pruta. How much is a pruta? 1/8 of an Italian issa. She acquires herself with a get or with the death of her husband. And a yavama is acquired with cohabitation, acquires herself with kalitza or with the death of a yava.
Okay, that's it. And it's so appropriate that we should start the Mishnah in Kiddushin today when the first time I'm going to be a Masada Kiddushin.
Yes. Oh, we saw a Kedushin there. Is today the wedding?
Today's the wedding. Today is the wedding.
Very exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah, Shabbos. Okay. Beis Aleph. Rabbi Eliezer said.
Okay, yeah.
Rabbi Eliezer says we may suspend the strainer on Yom Tov and we may pour into a suspended one on the Sabbath. But the comment said we may not suspend the strainer on Yom Tov, nor when we pour into a suspended one on the Sabbath, but we may pour into a suspended one on Yom Tov. We may pour water over wine's dregs so that they become clear, and we may filter wine through the cloths or through a basket made of palm twigs, and we may not put an egg in a mustard strainer. We may make a honey's wine on the Sabbath. If Yehuda says on the Sabbath it may be made in cups. On Yom Tov it may be made in a bottle and a kolamot in a cask. The Reb Tzadok says everything depends on the number of the guests. We may not soak safrida in warm water, but we may put it into vinegar. We may not soak veggies or rub them, but one may put them in a sleeve or in a basket. We may not sift straw on a sieve, nor put it in a huge place so that the chaff will drop. But he may take up on the sieve and pour it into a feeding trough.
Okay. And Zero.
Okay.
Done.
Enjoy your position
Very
today.
much. Thank you very much. Have a lovely day.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.